Ladies and gentlemen, now let us start the second session. I would like to welcome the deputations and individuals for coming to our meeting. If there is a need, you can put on your earphones and choose the channel you want. 0 is floor, 1 Cantonese, 2 English, 3 Putonghua. If you need assistance, our colleagues can help you, but I believe most of you do not need interpretation. And please pay attention to this. When we make your oral presentation and provide us with your written submission, they are not protected by the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance. And also, when you attend meetings in the LegCo complex, or if you are a member of the public in the public gallery, please take a look at our security guideline. The security guideline is in front of you. And also for those in the public gallery, you can ask our staff for that piece of information. Now we come to the most important part, that is listening to your views. I will invite you to speak one by one. Each one of you will have 3 minutes. Please try to be succinct. If you want to give us supplementary information, you can provide them to us after the meeting in writing. First of all, Ms. WONG Siu-kwan. We are talking about free education today, free pre-primary education. And some people are thinking that free means you don't have to pay. However, relatively, we are talking about quality pre-primary education. So we have to tell the difference. For quality pre-primary education, our government really needs the courage to take up more responsibility. However, government officials have always been talking about concrete measures and feasibilities, etc. So if there are different practices from our present policy, does it mean that they are not workable? Now, we have always been advocating for a stable pay scale. However, when we hear from the government, they are just proposing a pay scale which is not binding. If it's just a proposed one, how is it different from the present system? Well, the government says that it hopes that flexibility can be given to KGs. However, KGs have been operating in the free market. We have been suffering from flexibility. So if the government doesn't give us an undertaking, how can we have a stable teaching team? Just now, many representatives have talked about HD and WD KGs. As for the WD and LWD KGs, the government hasn't promised to give them full subsidies yet. This is unfair. And you want KG teachers to hold degrees. This was clearly stated in the year 2000 during the education reform.
KG teachers were required to possess a degree. But for 14 years, the Education Bureau has never had any planning for this. Even when this year's policy address was released, it said that in 2017, 60% of the KG teachers should possess degrees. But then when we talk about quality early childhood education, ECE, the number of degree-holding KG teachers is still very often 0. So you have to face this seriously. 40% of our KG teachers have already finished their degree programs. So 5 years into free KG education, we should raise that to 50%, and in the long run, that should be 100%. There's this request for lowering the teacher-student ratio. We do not agree that you should count the whole school, because if you adopt a whole school approach, the number of teachers per school may increase, but quality teachers or degree-holding teachers may still decline in number. Ms. Wong, we should be concerted in our action. There was this child who was very happy and dedicated in the classroom. By November, the teachers discovered that it was very emotional. It always wanted to get off school to visit its mother. So the teachers became very concerned. It's discovered that 2 weeks before that, the father left the home and the mother became very emotional. Then the teacher started a whole series of concern action. Together with the whole KG, assistance was offered to that family. For the time being, the family was assisted and that child went to primary school. Another KG1 pupil, after a month into the school year, was discovered to be having slow learning progress. Apparently, it was a slow learner when compared with other pupils. The teachers observed the pupil to collect evidence. They interviewed the mother to understand the overall development of the child and schooling details, and preparation and action were taken to see how follow-up action and support should be offered to the child, as well as referral services. Now, that pupil went to K2. And there's this child who used to have its mother taking it to school. And then it's discovered that the mother was the earliest to bring the child to school, but the last to take the child home. That's rather strange. After inquiries, it was discovered that the father of the child suffered from a sudden serious illness. The mother was a new arrival. She panicked because there's no support. So immediately the teachers intervened into the situation and offered help. Now, these life stories are everywhere around us. Therefore, early childhood education EC is important. Without KG teachers, more tragedies would have happened. Our KG teachers have been working very, very hard, silently. In return, they got disrespect and disregard from the government. So you should return dignity to KG's teachers and to adopt a mandatory pay scale and pay structure for KG teachers. Thank you. Next, Ms. Cecilia Lam. Good morning, everybody. I'm an educational psychologist representing the Hong Kong Society for the Protection of Child. A lot was said today about children. Mention was made of a 5-year-old, but in fact, a 5-year-old is still to develop his brain. If certain functions are not used, they would phase out. So, 6 years of age is very important. For a child to develop his networks before 6 years old is very important. So for ECE, we have to take into consideration the discrepancies among children. If early intervention is adopted, then according to our clinical experience and Harvard University's working report on the subject, a lot can be done for early intervention to stimulate the brain of these young children, which will impact on the whole life of the children. Now, we have a near 100% preschool education rate. But it's only by P1 that we have early intervention and holistic support. Why shouldn't we have early intervention and support for ECE? The government said yes, the SWD had MCH, Early Childhood Service Center, etc. But why should we have first assessment? Why should we have assessment first and support next? I've been an educational psychologist for a long time. Somebody said that it not heard of educational psychologists in preschool education. Yes, there were referral cases, but be it a parent or a teacher, when faced with these children, may be confused and perplexed. Yes, we have done a lot to persuade the parents, but they have to queue up for more than 2 years to get services. The government has been adopting a fragmented approach or a makeshift approach. If service is lacking, the parents will be told to wait till primary stage. So, does our government really want to do something for the 5-year-olds? By P1 or P3, the golden time may have passed, so early support and intervention should be offered. Next, Ms. Cheng Yufa, the principal. Good morning, everybody. I'm the principal of a nursery school under the HKSBC. Yesterday, I was sick. Concerning LWD service, we now face parents who are more and more complicated. We have both parents working as well as part-time working parents who need LWD KG service. We also face households with family violence, etc., etc. So many children need LWD services. Some children come from complicated family background and need LWD services. They need more care and support than other children. But at present, support offered to us is inadequate. Recently, we heard that 3 hours or 3.5 hours might become the indicator. So LWD services may be neglected. Basically, in our LWD services, the care and attention required by these children call for a lot of hard work and tolerance and patience on the part of teachers. Support for children with emotional problems is also badly needed. We would like more recognition for the value of LWD services. In the 2005 scheme, the 5-year-olds were dropped. In fact, we need to take care of children between 0 to 6 years old. So we need to attach importance to ECE. Throughout, our KG teachers have been working very, very hard. They even sacrifice their lunch time to teach the children. So with this 3-hour proposal, where is the value of LWD services? Is the government facing squarely social needs? Sometimes a family may be able to afford a domestic helper financially, but due to limited living space, they have to drop the idea. It seems that the government has not paid attention to the hard work of KG teachers, particularly the LWD teachers. Thank you. Next, Ms. Yip Yok Fong, a teacher. Good morning. I'm the representative of one of the schools under HKSBC. I've been in the education sector for over a decade. In the past, I encountered children with learning difficulties. Apart from those with reading and writing difficulties, in recent years, we got more autistic, slow learning children or children with other problems. We're under manpower pressure in the establishment. We had no support. We also had pressure from parents. In my class, I have 30 children. Well, normally we have 2 teachers per class. And when there is this child, special child in the class, then the child may refuse to queue up, drink, or eat. And then there will be emotional behavior like kicking other children, attacking other children, throwing chopsticks, etc. Now, the teachers have to deal with such scenarios. At least we need half an hour per case or per incident. And in another class, another teacher has to take care of teaching and caring of 29 pupils. So manpower is inadequate. Therefore, the 2 teachers for the class are always worried when they go to school because they're afraid the children may get hurt. That child was diagnosed to have autistic problems. So, early intervention and early recognition are important. In the first 6 years of childhood, we would like to provide suitable services for children with ADHD and autism. When we persuade parents to visit the government clinics, they may refuse our support. They may think that we're stigmatizing their children. As a result, they may withdraw from our school. That is, the children will drop out of our school. If we have educational psychologists, it will be very different. The policy address also mentions the significance of early intervention, but only for primary education. Why not preschool education as well? Is it that problems will only emerge in the primary stage? If not, why shouldn't we have support for the preschool stage? Next, Ms. Hong Yin-mei. I am an experienced childcare worker for 29 years. Now, I'm working with a half-day kindergarten for 23 years. In terms of teacher environment, resources, teacher professionalism, etc., our school is very, very ideal. Why is it that I still want to attend this public hearing to air my views? I can actually work till my retirement. It's because there is this unfair phenomenon in ECE, early childhood education. We don't have free ECE at the moment. We don't just have to satisfy the aspirations of parents. We have the teachers and the children as well. They have their respective needs. One of the committees seem to be suggesting a one-off grant system. I'm very disappointed. Is it that the government equate marketization with efficiency? Is it that the government believes that support and supply will be wasted? Our children have been sacrificed. If we're still adopting this one-off grant for ECE, you'll be destroying the stabilization of the profession. You are destroying quality education for ECE. So I oppose this one-off grant system. The government must be committed to ECE and include that into the whole education blueprint. Paragraph 137 of the policy address says that the government wants to unleash working potentials and enhance the subvented service hours for KGs and childcare centers. Another paragraph says that more whole-day services should be provided to KGs. That means there's a huge demand for services for KGs. In paragraph 151, the committee's report says that eligible pupils should be given basic subvention. I would like to know how that is to be carried out. For WD and LWD KGs, they only have 3 hours of subvented services. So how can they address social needs if they don't have the resources? How are they going to operate? How can they provide quality services?
Should we not subsidize full day and long full day education for kindergarten children? Your time is up. Ms. Chong.
I'm a special childcare teacher with 10 years of experience. In the new school year, I switched to another KG to serve as a counselor. This KG is good. It takes care of SEN pupils. The Board of Governors also established a counselor post. I think I'm the only counselor working in a KG offering whole day service. I have recognized and referred many SEN pupils for necessary services. Many SEN pupils are actually in the KG stage. If they attend a normal class, there will be huge problems. If there's no early intervention and recognition, we may miss the golden time for rectification. And in the primary stage, it will be even more difficult for these pupils to get integrated with other pupils. The number of SEN pupils is ever rising in recent years. Almost 7,000 such pupils are on the waiting list. And the new policy addresses that 1,400 more rehabilitation quotas would be provided, and cash allowance would be offered to a special teacher post. But the additional number of rehabilitation places won't be able to address the demands. And it takes an average of 9 months to a year for diagnosis. Of course, we now have more professionals in the diagnosis center, but that's still not enough. As for the number of special teachers, that's not a continuous measure or a fixed measure. So we must have a permanent service here. For half-day KGs, they should have a part-time enrollment program for SEN students so as to provide more such quotas and shorten the waiting time. There should also be inter-services services with physiotherapists, occupational therapists, educational psychologists, etc., to provide suitable treatment to the children. Yes, Ms. Wu. My organization now have 4 whole-day KGs. When the committee was set up, our colleagues had huge expectations. The committee suggested 5 principles: uniqueness, fairness, equality, quality, and sustainability. Under this principle of fairness, all 3 to 6-year-olds should be able to receive quality ECE. We subscribe to that principle.
And in this progress report, free kindergarten education comprises only half-day service, and at the same time, the proposal is that for kindergarten policies, when it is to be introduced, only low-income families and those with particular social needs will be eligible for full-day kindergarten education. For this policy, it is very disappointing for the Hong Kong people. If we look at primary education, the students have equal rights to education. That is to say, irrespective of family income and the parental care that can be afforded the children. The children nevertheless will have the same opportunities for access to primary education. For this particular report, however, because of the EDB's stance that there will have to be a means test for the family in order for the children to be eligible for full-day education at kindergarten level. We believe that this is a regression and it is a contradiction to what is in practice in Hong Kong right now. Now, if this is to be adopted, then the care providers will definitely be inclined to half-day school, which means for full day and long full day quotas, they will be fewer and fewer as we go along. And this will not only make the families of Hong Kong and the children lose out on this full day opportunity of education, and also it would be defeating to the engagement of women in the workforce. So whether it is for the providers for half-day, full-day or long full-day service, I'm sure they will all go for quality service. But on the other hand, this policy is really counter to the development of the providers, the service providers, and it is counter to the quality education policy for the people of Hong Kong. Let us not segregate into half-day, full-day. Let us please include kindergarten education into the education system of Hong Kong. Mr. Lam Chun Chung. Then Democratic Party had already submitted the policy paper to the LegCo. I will not go into the details of our stance here. I will just briefly go through the main points and also our feelings. First of all, we would want to see the government in this round of reform provide a stable pay scale for the kindergarten teachers so as to maintain at least a minimum for the teachers of the kindergarten and provide a ladder for development. And we also believe that the system should include half-day, full-day and long full-day service. As for kindergarten sites for the schools, in the Northern Territory, Northern District, there are some very peculiar cases. Would Mr. Yeung please look into them? In the past 2 to 3 years, in the Northern District, the places have been very deficient, and the parents had to line up actually overnight in order to get a kindergarten place. And this is highly unfair for the providers as well as the parents. Now, this is close to the border, and rentals are definitely rising. And a lot of the kindergartens are housed in private developments. In the past, for ground-level shop sites for the public housing estates are no longer available because many of them have been sold to the Link, the REIT. And the kindergartens have therefore to shoulder very high rental burdens, and the rentals are not going down but actually going up in the Northern District. The Kapo kindergarten is some $400,000 per month in rentals. This is ridiculous. And the government, EDB, had responded to the Kapo kindergarten 2 years ago in saying that according to the latest survey for this year's Northern Territories or districts, kindergarten sites are not in deficient, and therefore we will not be subsidizing the rentals. I do not know what kind of government this is. This is about market forces, it seems to say, that the market forces should provide the answer to adjustments for school places. I mean, this means that the children will have to go very far in order to go to another district to get kindergarten education, and also the kindergartens are also in dire situations. This is a negligence of the needs of the parents, the schools, and the school children. Yes, I became a new father last year. I am a father of a pair of twins, and now I am facing the education problem. and I'm very cautious about it. The Chan Kar Lok office had provided a consultation, had conducted a consultation concerning kindergarten education, and there's data. The data is provided on our submission. I will not go into the details here, but I would like to raise 2 points. One, concerning full-day kindergarten, and also the venues or sites for kindergarten schools. Now, for full-day and long full-day service, a lot of parents in Hong Kong are actually double-income family parents, and there is dire need for this kind of long service. As for the voucher, if you do the calculations for subsidizing full day and long full day, you will be able to see that the half-day teachers would fetch a higher salary on per-hour payment basis than the long day and the full-day service. And as a result, not too many kindergartens would opt for full day and long full day. And also in the policy address, well, actually it's been said for a few years, even at the time of running for the post, C.Y. Leung of CE, C.Y. Leung had already talked about this subsidy system and free education at kindergarten level. Now, according to the policy address, the KG will only be at half-day level, basis. So the policy inclination will again be to half-day basis. I hope that this will not be the policy going forward. Hopefully there will be sufficient subsidy for full-day and long full-day kindergarten. As for venues and rentals, yes, the developers, property developers' monopoly of the market and tyranny in Hong Kong had meant that kindergartens have to pay exorbitant rentals. And if you remember in Tin Shui Wai, there was a kindergarten had to close because of high rentals, and some 300 school children had to switch to another school or other schools. Now, even with the rental subsidies, the property developers or the landlords would raise their rentals even further. But what we want is to see venues provided at reasonable rates to the kindergartens. Now, if I can just provide another even more fictitious story to the Chief Executive. I'm sorry, this is a new topic. I'm sorry, you have to end here. Your time is up, 3 minutes. Ms. Leung Wai-sing? Yes, we have heard a lot from the industry. Let us hear from the women. Free kindergarten education would probably be on a 3-hour or half-day basis without a long full day or long full day necessity, especially for families and for women. This is highly disappointing. The present situation is that there are 7 hours to the full day. Long full day is 10 hours care, and without this, the families' demands for and needs for caring for children is not met, especially for single parents and also two-income families. The long service or long full-day centers are open during the weekends, including the Sundays, and this will be more fitting for their needs. And 3-hour or half-day kindergarten would really make it difficult for these families, and especially for women. A lot of women would want to access the workforce. And in the population policy of the government, the women are encouraged to work, to enter the labor force. But on the other hand, this kindergarten service should really be another link in the promotion of women engagement in the workforce. It would be very difficult for exorbitant kindergarten fees to be met by the lower rung families, and as a result of that, the women have to stay at home, care for the children, and fall into the net for of poverty. With subsidized full day or free full day service, there will have to be certain criteria for needy families or for working parents. Only for them would this full day quota be provided. But for those who want to access the labor force, that is, enter the labor force for such women and for such families, it is contradictory. It does not take into consideration their needs, because they have to stay at home to care for the children and are not able to enter the labor force. So I repeat, for 15 years of free education, we should also take into consideration the needs for full day and long full day kindergarten, expand the quota and places, extend full day kindergarten, and support the women in entering the workforce. Now, in the policy address, the CE said that there will be encouragement for more full day care. I would like to know the full content of that. Thank you. Ms. Yang Wei-Sam. I am a parent. I also have a child with early special education need. Since he or she was identified as an SEN child at kindergarten level, I felt completely helpless. I didn't know what to do. So I went to a referral service in Lower Kwai Chung. I made the registration, and then I found out that I could only access the service, actually the psychologist, only 6 months from then. That is to say, I'm still not a beneficiary of early stage service. I am a working mom. I've been changing jobs. The nature of my work, I used to hold down a long, 9 to 10 or at least 9 to 8 p.m. job before I could go back to my children. It was late night. And because I thought that that would not do for my child, which needs special care, I went into freelance work. And then I had to change to even shorter working hours, free myself up over the weekend to care for my children. And I thought, is it because of my short hours with my child or children that he or she had developed special needs? I do not know. I have no answers. I'm still waiting for help from the government. I feel completely helpless. Now, I'm lucky in that there is I went to a talk, and there is a service, a center providing service for my child, and I had to dig into my own pocket in order to get that consultation to find out what is the issue with my child. Well, because I knew that the government assessment would not be given in the near term, and so I delved into my own pocket to come up to go for the assessment myself. But surely I will not be able to get service before the golden time, before my child turns 6. I feel completely helpless. What am I to do as a mother? I know my child will have development issues, but without a system, without resources telling me what to do, what can I do? Luckily, there is a social worker. There was a social worker at the school of my child, and there was some preliminary assessments through another center. And I now have quit my full-time job. I'm now a part-time worker, so as to devote more time to my child, to my son, because they have to undergo training. Thank you. Ms. Soana, there is already a pay scale for teachers, for mandatory pay scale for teachers, This is very important for attracting and retaining teachers. This pay scale, I heard, will be irrespective of seniority. Well, I think for retaining talents and teachers, this is a heavy blow, and this is unacceptable to us. Free kindergarten education will have to be based on teachers' resources and also rentals or site resources. These have to be segregated from other resources. Other resources have to be based on the number of students, but not for teachers' subsidies. That is important. Otherwise, it will not be sustainable. And also, we have to care for SEN children and also build up our teaching and learning leadership as well as mid-level management. And the teacher to children ratio, we have that ratio, but not to teacher to class education. And this eats into their curriculum preparation time. The teacher to children is 1 to 15 ratio. That is to say a 50 students KG1 grade would mean 4 teachers. They have to teach, care for the children, conduct activities, prepare for courses. The latter 2, they will be only able to do after work, after the school had ended. And that completely impacts negatively into their livelihood, the teacher's livelihood. So we need relief. We need relief of teachers, and in order to provide quality education. 1 to 1.4 is the ratio for the new ratio, which means that there can be 6 teachers to one group of 50, which means there can be time freed up for preparation of coursework. There can be also counseling for parents and more care for children, which is a win-win situation. So we're for a private venues rental subsidy for the kindergarten housed in these private venues. Some would criticize that this is about putting money into the pockets of the developers. But on the other hand, we have to look this squarely in the face. We have to allow these children and these parents to get the benefits and subsidy first. Mr. Lo Siu-kwan. The kindergarten market in Hong Kong is a completely private and marketized arena. When we talk about free kindergarten education, in fact, we are talking about a fully private market and providing quality public-funded kindergarten in that midst, rather than to stamp out any international curriculum or privately run kindergarten. Certainly not. And in the election period of the CE, among the 3 candidates for long full day was part of his platform. And his platform at the time concerning long full day and kindergarten service was very good among the 3 candidates and very comprehensive. But in terms of subsidies, how do we make it feasible? That was the issue. However, until now, for long full day, it is still a void. What is the content? The platform can be, we can all access the platform on his website. I will not go into the details.
I would like to remind you 2 simple things. On the 10th of February 2012, in the afternoon, 4 LWG KG teachers who were election committee members. They went to visit the CE for Chinese New Year, and after the visit, there was this 5-year-old girl, and her mother asked the child if she wants to ask the CE something, and she asked some innocent questions. She said, Uncle Leung, my parents work very long hours. They work really hard. They have to make money so that they can pay tuition fee for me and my little brother. I don't want my parents to work to suffer so much. So can you solve the problem? And Uncle Leung, I want my little brother to enjoy free education. Is that possible? At that time, Uncle C.Y. Leung replied to the two kids. He said, okay. This is a true story. It's not fabricated. Yesterday at 5 p.m., I sent this submission to the LegCo, and there's a photo attached. These two kids were real. And also, when Mr. Leung attended the social welfare subsector answering questions on 10-year free education, I asked him that he should really incorporate LWDKG into free education. He said that he would accord priority to that, but up to now we haven't seen anything about that. I don't think he's prioritizing anything. Next, Mr. Chong Chen-shun. Good morning, everyone. I have 3 children. My children are attending LWDKGs. For LWDKGs, they help my kids a lot. Well, we were born in Hong Kong. We grew up in Hong Kong. We work very hard. Now I run a small business. Now everything in Hong Kong is very expensive, in particular rents. I own my own home. However, that's why I cannot apply for a number of subsidies. But me and my wife have to work. We have a small apartment. We don't have space for a domestic helper. So for LWDKGs, it's from 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. So for parents like us, we really need this kind of service. But I've heard that now the government is proposing to subsidize 3 hours of KG education only. My oldest child is 9, and the second one is 7, the youngest one is 4. They are all going to NWDKGs. This service is really needed by us, because I and my wife can go to work. I work full-time. My wife works part-time. We work very hard. LWDKGs help us. We can put our children there. They do not have grandparents. So these schools really help us. Now, if a child is not feeling well, if he has a fever, at least we can take the child home from the school or ask our family members to take care of the child for a while. But if it's for a long time, we can put the child in a school, and the school can take care of the child from morning till night. But if you are just subsidizing for 3 hours, then when the children go home, nobody can take care of them. And also in the LWDKGs, the children can keep on learning. They can have interaction with other children. So LWDKGs provides much more services than HDKGs. If you do not subsidize LWDKGs, you really cannot help parents like us, because in Hong Kong everything is very expensive. A man does not want his wife to go out to work. However, we are under financial pressure, so we have to do that. Next, Ms. Wong. Just now, Ms. Helena Wong asked me to introduce the representative. So according to her instruction, I will do that. Ms. Wong Man-yen is the principal of the EFCC Tin Yan Nursery School. Good morning. I manage a school which is a LWDKG. It's in Tin Shui Wai. Tin Shui Wai is a very special community which is very remote. Most of the parents are working and they have to take long car trips to the workplace. It will take a lot of time. So LWD service is really needed by these parents. For our school, we have been running in Tin Shui Wai for 10 years. I myself have lived in Tin Shui Wai for 15 years. I have witnessed the changes in our community. Over the past few years, rents in the urban area have increased significantly. Many parents have moved to Tin Shui Wai. These are young parents. On the surface, they are not people in abject poverty. However, they have to spend most of their rents on mortgage repayments and travel. So the living standard is like that of a low-income family. They do not have a support system because they leave their relatives who are living in the urban areas. So if LWD KG subsidies are only provided for low-income families, then these parents will suffer. They are in a sandwich class, and so I think it's really unfair. So after getting the subsidy for 3 hours, they have to pay for the rest of the tuition fee. To them, I think this is a huge burden. They will be impoverished. I think this is unfair to them. They have to pay tax. However, they do not get any support from the government. So when it comes to free KG education, I think both WD and LWD services should be included so that families with different needs can choose services that are most suitable for their children. We are facing a lot of difficulties because the government has never subvented services like those we provide. We have been applying for different resources so that we can provide counselors and social workers at our schools. According to my experience, I think early education institutions are the best platform for children's development. So I hope that the government will face this squarely, and when the government implements free KG education, social workers and counselors should also be included. Thank you. Next, the Chongqing Mission of Hong Kong Social Service Supervisor, Ms. Yang So-Kyun. I speak on behalf of the Chongqing Mission of Hong Kong Social Service. However, I'm also a parent of 2 children, and I have my own feelings concerning LWD KG. I remember I was looking for a KG for my children. I only wanted to look for a LWD KG because in my work I know more about the development of children. I believe LWD KGs can nurture children in a better manner. They can learn more language, muscle using, personal relationship, etc. So that was my only choice, LWD KGs. So for Hong Kong families, they have to face certain Hong Kong characteristics. For example, most of the parents are working. So if they have the financial capability, or if they know very well about children development, if they have patience, of course it would be great for parents to take care of children themselves. When the government promotes about 15-year free education, it says that it would be best for parents to take care of their own children. Yes, that is ideal. However, if you look at Hong Kong's circumstances, this is not quite possible. Well, because most of the parents have to work. And sometimes we hear parents say this, well, in the past there's no social group or difficulty resolving group. There were no groups like this. Children could grow up easily. In the past, we had neighbors. You can ask your neighbor to take care of your child for a while, and your child can go to the park to be stimulated. Yes, now children can still go to parks, and they are taken care of by domestic helpers. However, it's very difficult to teach them how to solve problems. And let us not mention other abilities that they are supposed to develop, because the playgrounds have all changed. For LWDKGs, they can play a role that Hong Kong families cannot play now. I've seen a primary one child. The school discovers that he's still drooling, and then he goes for an assessment, and it's discovered that the child developed much more slower than other children. And why is that? Because his parents are working. The child is only taken care of by a domestic helper and grandparents. Then the grandparents just spoil the child, and the domestic helper just ensures that the child is safe. They are not the ideal people to raise the child. So we suggest that LWDKG should be promoted and subvented. Next, Hong Kong Society for the Protection of Children, Ms. Susan So, Director. Well, thank you for listening to our views. We have provided our submission, so I would just like to make 2 points. First, the Committee on Free Kindergarten Education is inclined to subvent HDKGs. It would just be providing funding for 3 hours. This is against the international trend. Lately, the international community has adopted EduCare. They would have a more macroscopic perspective. Children's learning experience should be enriched. They would nurture the child from a whole person development perspective. So when it comes to subventing early education, the government should also look at Hong Kong's population policy. So what should we be thinking about? That is, what kind of ways should be used to support a more diversified early education. And in particular, while most parents are working, how can we provide more support to them? And there should also be early identification and early support so that children can be assessed professionally as early as possible. I'm not going into the details concerning how LWDKGs are supporting working parents. Now, LWDKGs are working for long hours. They are providing services to children between the age of 2 and 6, and they help parents a lot. But this is not supported by the government. The government should really think about this. It should look at the operating hours of KGs, the service hours, the functions, and then provide comprehensive support to LWDKGs. And for the Education Bureau, it does not support pupils with special needs. It's not like those children in primary and secondary schools who receive a lot of support. Over 20,000 children have special needs after testing, and they are not supported in KGs. No matter whether it's identification, early intervention, and parent support, there is a shortage. So they are wasting 6 years for waiting. So I hope that there can be an early identification system, and professional teams should be provided to support these pupils. A support system should be set up. And early intervention, early identification should be implemented so that these children can receive help earlier. Next, the Association of Evangelical Free Churches of Hong Kong, EFCC, Verbena Nursery School Principal, Ms. So Yi Mei. I have been managing WDKGs for 25 years. For LWDKGs, they have been working very hard, but they have been ignored by the government. They think that KGs are princess, and we LWD KGs are just their helpers, the service women. We have provided a lot of services to parents, to children. However, we are brushed aside by the government. I really feel sad. We know the needs of children. Hong Kong's property price is soaring. And even if you sell a tiny flat for $4 million, people will be fighting for it. The government says that there's an exceptionally long waiting queue for HOS. Why is that? Because we do not have enough land, and we don't have enough supply of housing. People have told you that they really need LWD KGs. Parents are very busy. They want to put their children in KGs so that they can work. Both parents have to work. Of course, they have to pay for very expensive properties. These parents may not be able to get any subsidies. Many lower middle class parents cannot enjoy public housing. They cannot enjoy any types of subventions. They are suffering a lot. They hope that free education can be provided, but it turns out that it's just a dream. They are under huge pressure. They are aggrieved. And no wonder there are so many complaints in our society. So for LWD KGs, some of them operate for 10 hours, some even 12 hours. And teachers work very hard. It's not like other 3-hour half-day KGs, but the government will just subsidize HD KGs. So why won't the LWD KG teachers run away? Because they also have their own families. They also have to continue their education. So I hope the government can think twice. Please think of the needs of these parents and children, as well as the needs of the LWD KG teachers. I am very sad about this brain drain. Thank you. Next, Hong Kong Christian Service Chief Supervisor, Ms. Adelina Kong. Good morning, everyone. I would like to make 3 points. First, Committee on Free Kindergarten Education, Mrs. Ip has always said that. Now we are talking about free KG education. In the educational system, what is meant by KG education is for children between the age of 3 and 6, and it's only a half-day education. Now we have 3 types of KGs, HD, WD, and LWD. The administration, it's talking about HD KGs. Some of these KGs also have WD services. I hope the administration can really tackle this problem at roots. Don't stick to the old system. Society is moving forward every day. The government should catch up with these changes. And also for free KG education, now the government is subventing only for 3 hours. Actually, you are brushing aside the needs of the LWKG parents. Now over 40,000, there are over 40,000 WD places. About 50% of them are LWD.
Therefore, a 3-hour service will add to the operational cost of the KGs. That is to reduce the room for survival of LWD KGs as well as reducing the choices of parents. This is seriously detached from actual social circumstances. The government should not be worried about financial implications that KGs will shift from WD to HD. 100% operational cost subvention should be offered for HD, WD, and LWD KGs so as to offer genuine free KG education. Then we can decide the number of KGs and the modes of operation. Besides, the Education Bureau should rationalize the KG system. Apart from classes for 3 to 6-year-olds, we also have classes for the 2-year-olds. 246 LWD KGs are indeed serving the 2 to 6-year-olds. We don't want ECE policy changes to affect all these. Otherwise, every time there would be heated debate between the sector and the government. In fact, this is unfair to parents of the 2 to 6-year-olds or 2 to 3-year-olds. So you have to include ECE into the whole education system so that you can perfect the overall education system. Now you have 3 children under secretary, known as HD, WD, and LWD. Yes, there are family codes to follow. We've been following them comprehensively, but we're treated differently. Particularly for the LWDs, every time we had to work very, very hard before we can get only very, very small benefits. So please treat us equally. Next, Ms. Leung Xiu-ting, chairperson of the Hong Kong Baptist University Early Childhood Education Sector. I think you all agree that education is not business. It is life influencing life. When compared with primary and secondary education, ECE fares much worse. Our teachers may have the same qualifications and years of service, but we enjoy a lower pay. It depends on enrollment and operational realities to determine teachers' salaries. In order to retain the professionals, KGs have to cut costs on other fronts. On the long run, because of financial implications, KG teachers are just selling their services and ECE becomes a business. So how can we provide quality education? To provide quality ECE, we first of all have to protect the learning environment of students. One most important point is a stable and support environment to support teaching. So we're absolutely against a one-off grant system. We tell our children not to repeat their mistakes. In the welfare sector, this one-off grant system has already created huge damages. The government should not repeat that mistake. Children are members of society. They absolutely deserve the best education from our society. So don't use market yardsticks to measure ECE, which is a government responsibility. ECE should be fully subvented and be fully included in the education sector. We should be treated on a par with secondary education. And we also should be included in the 15 years of free education. That would be reasonable. So please listen to us, do something down to the earth, and don't disappoint society anymore. Next, Mr. Chen Kai-yin, Kindergarten Vice Principal. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to share with you this. I believe you all agree that for sustainable development, a school needs to train its personnel. But under the present pay structure, KG teachers are not protected in their salaries, and they may leave, and we may need to train another batch of teachers. 5 years ago, I trained teachers by bringing them to a workshop. After 5 years, they left, and I have to repeat the same cycle again. This is something to do with education quality, so it has to be solved. Besides, we hear that there will be this one-off grant system for KG education or ECE, and the median wage will be adopted as the threshold for KG teachers' pay. If I don't have manpower, I need to hire more teachers, but with insufficient subvention, I may have to lay off those KG teachers with more experience and higher salaries. Now that will lead to wastage and hamper education quality. there must be full subsidy for KG teachers' pay. That will be a huge help to us. And then I'd like to say something about WD and LWD KGs. Society badly needs them. If we only have 3 hours of free KG education, we won't be doing enough. You won't be able to solve social problems. The government wants to unleash the working potentials of women. But if you can only offer 3 hours of free KG education, you will not be doing enough. For teachers working in WD and LWD KGs, they work long hours. Why is it that so many teachers are still tolerating the situation? Is because their spirit overrides their physical needs. If the government is not going to provide support to them, it is very unfair to these teachers. We say that we shouldn't stay in a hazardous environment. But these teachers are staying in a hazardous environment because they know that they lack resources. Still, they persist. So they're very good. Well, let me say something about early childhood education, ECE. As far as I understand, that covers all preschool activities. Many people say that ECE is important, but you should change that name. ECE should be included in primary education in your education structure. So you should change the term early childhood education. Or rather, you should use early childhood education as the term. Next, Mr. Frankie Ngan from the DAB. Thank you, Chairman. All along, the DAB is grateful to the stakeholders for their invaluable opinion on ECE. In the latest policy address, the CE said that the Committee on Free Kindergarten Education will consider more whole-day services as well as LWD services. Just now, many members of the profession mentioned the need for WD and LWD KGs. In 2013, we conducted a survey and discovered that 3 out of the 4 parents are working. That means 3 out of 4 households have both parents working. We heard that for ECE, only 3 hours of service would be subvented. This is a mismatch between reality and the proposal. The government must recognize the contribution of LWD KGs to society. The CE also offers an additional 6,200 LWD KG quotas. That is a recognition of LWD KG's functions. We propose that the amount of subvention should be increased such that those KGs can maintain the existing services. I'd also like to say something about the textbook subsidy. We would like that subsidy to cover KGs as well, so as to assist those families with financial difficulties. And we should have a new pay structure for KG teachers. We now have more flexibility, but the mobility of KG teachers has also been enhanced. It's because KG teachers don't have a stable profession, so the level of manpower will become unstable as well, and in the long run will impact on quality KG education. So please assist the needy families. All right, thank you very much for your views. After listening to you, I'll first of all invite the Undersecretary to offer some initial responses. Then I'll invite members to speak. This session will end at 12:40. Under Secretary, Mr. Chairman, once again, I'd like to thank all the speakers. I think I should reserve more time for members to speak, because just now I have already roughly responded to the views expressed. Now, which member would like to speak? Helena Wong, myself, Chang Kok-chi, Kenneth Chan. We have ample time. Maybe for the first round, I can give each member 4 minutes. Dr. Helena Wong. First of all, I would like to thank the friends here for their concern about ECE. We've heard a lot from you today, and we heard a lot about LWDKGs. Under Secretary, the CE's policy address this year also mentions unleashing of working potentials. The CE also wants to enhance ECE subvention, but that's for children up to 3 years old only. 6,000 more quotas are offered. The CE only mentions his wish for more WDKGs and nothing more. What about after-school care? What about LWDKGs? They're not mentioned in the policy address. If we want to unleash the working potential of women, we won't be able to do so if you only cover children from 3 years old onwards. Then what about the younger children? The parents may have to get off work to take care of their young children or find somebody to do so. What about assistance for KGs? I also heard that the government is only prepared to subsidize half-day KGs and for 3 hours only. We now have many WD and LWDKGs. Many families need them. Their parents need to work. 3 hours won't work. I heard that there would be a means test. Only the very, very poor families will be assisted. So at the end of the day, only very few people will get your assistance. So, Mr. Yang, Under Secretary, how are you going to resolve this issue about WD and LWDKGs? Under Secretary, maybe I should offer more explanation because we have ample time. The CE mentioned free KG education and WD and LWDKGs. Maybe you feel that he spoke not enough on the subjects. For the Education Bureau, before we see the report from the committee, we should not excessively have too much imagination. In the policy address, it is mentioned how we should encourage KGs to offer whole-day services and to provide WD and LWD services to the needy families. So we're talking about needy families. As for needs, apart from resources, we have to look at the actual family needs. Of course, in our discussions, we had representatives from the profession. Yes, different people might have different views. And in forging a consensus, some opinion may be taken up earlier than others. We may have different views, but at the end of the day, we have to look at the committee's report first. Under Secretary, I think you really need to explain to us what you mean by needy. You mean parents are to decide what's meant by needy. You really have to define the word needy. Yes, I'll give you a second round. Now it's my turn. Thank you very much. I'd like to speak on a number of views. Ms. Kong said she had 3 children. In fact, that's only an analogy. So Education Bureau, all these are your children. Don't favor any. And then Ms. Susan So mentioned a global trend, that is actual care. That is, care and education should be emphasized equally. So that's a concept. Understand that Mr. Eddie Ng, the Secretary for Education, has been visiting many other jurisdictions in the world to understand inter alia what KG education is all about. So I believe the Education Bureau has been able to grasp the global trend. So do you agree that educare is the global trend? My third question is, as many people mentioned today, we have ASEAN students. Mr. Chong Pek-wan mentioned that ordinary KGs should also take on ASEAN pupils, not just whole-day KGs. Can I have a response from the Bureau? Mr. Chairman, concerning global trend, I'll ask the Deputy Secretary to respond in a moment. Now, we understand that in the market we have different operators of KGs. Some are HD, some are WD, some are LWD KGs. They have their respective difficulties. We would like to be able to take care of all their needs eventually. Even for LWD KGs, different operators may also have different difficulties. Can we take care of all the problems of every operator, every teacher, every parent? We may not be able to do so, but by and large, we would like our services to be acceptable to the profession. We don't just have 3 children, we also have primary schools, secondary schools, and universities. So in fact, the Education Bureau has to work very, very hard. Yes, your job is difficult. As far as we know, educare is at present a global concept. Will it evolve into a common goal for everybody? I'm not sure. Maybe internationally, other jurisdictions are not progressing very rapidly either. The Deputy Secretary will elaborate. We understand the needs of the KGs. Well, usually for those under 6 years old, the SWD is doing more. We'll keep in collaboration with them. We'll study under the new mode what more can be done. We would like the children to receive appropriate care. Deputy Secretary, any supplement? Yes, please wait till the second round then. Mr. Chang Kwok-chi? Thank you, Chairman. I'd also like to thank the deputation and individuals attending today. For the first session, I was listening upstairs. And for the second session, I'm here. From what I heard, apparently, nobody supported the proposal of the committee, that is subvention for 3 hours only. where the Under-Secretary had a slip of the tongue just now. He said that subsidy would first be offered to HD KGs first. So you're not considering WD and LWD KGs for the moment. So it's just like the casual laborers. For our KGs in future, only 3 hours of service would be sufficient. I did some calculation. I think some of the KG teachers won't even be covered by labor insurance because they may work less than 15 hours. So is this a trick on behalf of the government? That is to make these jobs part-time or casual jobs only, and they're not to be covered even by labor insurance. Maybe Mr. Moses Chang will have to come out and explain to the public later. From what I heard today, everybody opposes this 3-hour subvention idea. I really don't understand why the committee members have supported this 3-hour subvention idea. I think the committee members have to explain to us their positioning. As regards the one-off grant system, it's already a disaster in the welfare sector. For an institution with over 1,000 staff members, it may still be able to make its ends meet by cross-subsidies among different heads of expenditure. But for an institution with just a few staff members, this one-off grant assistance is really difficult. Well, have you ever considered a reimbursement system? Is it actually better than the one-off grant system? Under-Secretary, well, I have to be very careful, otherwise I may have another slip of the tongue. For the one-off grant system, if we are to adopt it in the KG sector, we'll have to consider the existing problems in the welfare sector. For myself, for the time being, I'm not very familiar with the situation in the welfare sector. I have a rough idea about the difficulties encountered by the welfare sector, but we need to study in more detail whether those problems can be solved. I'm not saying that I'll definitely do that. What I'm saying is that if we are to adopt this one-off grant system for KGs, we'll consider all problems and explore every solution. Well, we won't start from money saving in our deliberation. We have to study the systems as well as effectiveness and efficiency rather than money saving. Mr. Kenneth Chan, Dr. Kenneth Chan, thank you, Chairman. I'd also like to thank the deputations and individuals from the KG sector and ECE sector. From what we heard, well, first of all, they're not coming for the first time. I recall that at the end of 2012, they also wore red clothing to show their solidarity for striving for 15 years of free KG education. And then this committee was formed. Now, we heard something worrying, so we had to come out again. If C.Y. Leung is to propose 15 years of free education, we have to understand the details of his policies and concepts before implementation. Apparently, he can offer assistance to half-day KGs. We're not trying to bargain with you. We're not trying to put up a very high-sounding request. Say we're asking for $100 In fact, we're expecting $5 only from you. Now, the educational professionals and experts are offering their opinion to us on what's ideal for our children in order to take care of the needs of the education sector as well as the working parents.
I do not know whether the government is the benevolent father or the mother or what you are. But on the other hand, you are going through the committee to do the bargaining, and the bargaining committee is not here even today. Well, at least Moses Cheng isn't here. Right. And they're saying the government is pleading, well, the committee hadn't done their work, and we do not know what the recommendations are, and there you are speaking up again. So what are we doing today? Are we wasting time? This is another activity that we go through? I mean, Mr. Chair, please excuse me. There is no progress we can speak of here. Are we talking about full subsidy, and then you come back and say you want full day subsidy, and then they say full one-off grant, and they say, I mean, what is it? I mean, we have to voice our worries for the government's noting. But then today you say you cannot say anything because you cannot jump the gun, and you cannot do the work of the committee or answer on their behalf. Now, I am not a realist. I am an idealist. But I urge and I want to see the government being realistic. Because otherwise, by the end of the year, 2015, we still have no solution to this. When we come up with a policy, we have to come up with the specifics. I mean, it's been 2 years, and we're still talking about the same thing. I mean, there has to be a legislative process, there has to be consultation of the public, there will have to be due process, and there's going to be budgeting and financing, and let's say a budget of 50 billion for whatever purpose. I mean, all these processes. I mean, the government, how much budget is it going to be allocated for something that was promised at the CE election platform, 15 years of free education? It's deplorable that you all have the heart, you all want there to be a good policy for the benefit of Hong Kong, but right now we don't even have a timetable, not to mention the calculation of resources and the specifications and details. I do not know whether Mr. Yeung, the government would go back and think about all these points he's heard today and come back with a timetable so that we can go to the specifics. Wang Kwok-hing. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the deputations for coming up with their views. Concerning today's exchange, and we have a few more, a lot more, in total over 100 individuals and bodies coming up for the deputations. Now, we know that there is a select committee working perhaps near to the final stages of work on the topic that we are concerned. But on the other hand, they are not represented today. And that is a pity, because if they are, the committee is drafting a report to the for the benefit of the government in coming up with a policy, then they should really hear the views of the deputations, their analysis and their opinions, whether they accept them or not. But at least this will be easier for them to come to a consensus with all. But today, there is no such arrangement. They are not here. And the Deputy Secretary, I also notice that you and your attitude seems to say that you cannot represent the committee and it's difficult for you to make responses. On the basis of that, I have 2 requests to make. On the basis of what I've described just now, I have 2 requests to make. First, Mr. Yeung, can you, on the opinions raised by the deputations, over 100 of them coming to the LegCo today, apart from their written submission, which will be referred to the committee. Would you please summarize the opinions into categories, into topics and questions? Come up with a summary report for the perusal of the committee so that at least they note the opinions raised today so that they consider them in their final report. Can you do that? We are spending a whole day on this. If you can summarize the views heard today to clearly refer them to the committee and make it logical, of course, categorize the different them into different topics, issues, questions, so that the committee at some point will be able to respond to them. That's one request. Second, Mr. Chair, as a LegCo, I make that request. Mr. Chair, please see if this is fitting, and that is for the opinions we have heard so far today. Can we, through the Secretariat, also summarize? Of course, we have the minutes as well, but can we, the Secretariat of the LegCo, also step up and summarize the opinions heard and refer that to the committee to provide them with this reference in their formulation of the final report so that they know of the queries, worries, concerns, and requests and demands of the deputations. Those are the two requests. Mr. Young and the Chair, please. Mr. Young, please. We are happy to refer the opinions heard today to the committee, and all minutes will also be handed to the committee. I want to emphasize that in the past 1 year, the committee had also heard from the industry. They have been listening to their views, and they have adjusted their proposals according to what they have heard, even though they are not physically represented here today. But I would think that they know of the industry's views. Thank you, Mr. Wong Kwok-hing. I would believe the Secretariat will have no problems taking that work up. Indeed. Yes. We will refer the opinions heard today to the committee. Thank you very much, Mr. Young. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yes, and our panel had invited the Free Kindergarten Education Association to come up. But I heard from the Secretariat that because the committee, we have heard from the Secretariat that the committee had said because they already meet with parents, teachers, and operators and kindergarten groups, they're not coming to this meeting today. As chair of this meeting and this panel, I deeply regret this so-called reason for the committee in avoiding coming to the deputation meeting today and claim that they are drafting on behalf of the Hong Kong people the proposal for kindergarten education. It's deplorable. Wong Pik-wan, myself, Chung Kwok-chu, and Chan Ka-lok will be speaking. 2.5 minutes. Can we have 2.5? Can we have half minutes? 2.5 minutes then for each. Dr. Wong Pik-wan, Helena Wong. Mr. Young, can you respond to the paragraph 151 of the policy address? The government encourages kindergartens in providing more full-day service and provide subsidies to the needy families. What are needy families, according to your understanding? Quote, unquote, the CE, that is, those who need full-day or long full-day families. Are those the needy families, or are we talking about economic needs or financial needs? According to the paper, it says the committee will be looking into full-day service and also needy family service. Well, when the committee comes up with the report, of course, they will specify what are needy families. And when it comes to us, we will consider the committee's views, and then we will have our view. Well, I know Moses Chang, and in his capacity at the committee, and he's been to the Democratic Party. When he met with us, he said he's inclined for 3-hour kindergarten. And when he talked about needy families, he's talking about financial neediness, whether the family is in poverty or whether they cannot make ends meet. Those are the so-called needy families. Otherwise, everybody else will be 3-hour kindergartens. I mean, that's what I know. But what I think is more appropriate is that any family which needs full-day kindergarten or long full day, that would be needy service, rather than to have another benchmark, another ruler for measuring neediness. Now, this is a 2014 October consultation or survey concerning parents' needs for subsidy for school fees, and the benchmark for subsidies for kindergarten school fee should be loosened. And it says here in this survey that only less than 20% of families benefit from this subsidy. Can you respond to that? Is there room for review? You need to allow time for him to respond. Time is up. Yes, we will have another round. Next person. Perhaps written submission, written response to members. Can you please provide a written response? How about the second round? Perhaps he can answer you in the second round. Yes, I can also give him time. I raise a question concerning international trends. Yes, Mr. Yeung had spoken. Perhaps Mrs. Choi can also speak on that. Concerning international trends, I have to clarify one concept, and that is, we've been talking about 3 hours, or full day or long full day. We have to be very clear about the area of service and the extent of subsidy. For service, it is true that we have these 3 types, that is 3 hours, long day, and full day and long full day. And different modes will have their different functions. Now, what the committee is thinking, the mainstream thinking, is that the government subsidy should be given to half day only. And I'll not go into the background of that thinking. As for the 151, para 151 of the policy address, it says that the committee will look into how kindergartens can be encouraged to provide full-day service. How are they to be encouraged? The committee is thinking up all methods. And also to respond to Professor Dr. Wong's point, what are construed as needy families? Well, it had always been on the financial means of the family, but if you look at the entire sentence in the policy address, encouraging kindergarten to provide this service by kindergartens, which means needy families will be able to have this kind of service. Mrs. Choi, in our knowledge, a lot of European countries, in order to release human resources and to raise the quality of the population, full-day schooling is getting higher. And in the ranking, international ranking, Hong Kong ranks 25. There's more emphasis paid on small children or young children education. As for subsidies to the parents, that is the most effective encouragement. I mean, if it's about 3-hour kindergarten, kindergarten day, we will not be able to provide the service needed by the parents. Mr. Chair, you have you have read out the chair of the committee, and it is completely unacceptable, their response to our invitation to their presence at the meeting. Secretariat, did the response come from the authority or the Secretariat? Well, actually, the chair, Ms. Starry Lee, had asked the Secretariat to invite the members or the representatives of the committee to come to the meeting today. And we have received an email from the authority saying that because the chairman and the vice chairman of the committee do from time to time meet with the parties and the unions and the principals associations, they will not be coming to the meeting today. Mr. Chair, if they say all members of the committee, including the chairman and vice chairman, do not have the time to come to the meeting, perhaps I can accept that. But if this is a response, then I think the LegCo should write back to them. This is disrespectful of the status of the LegCo, let alone the over 100 friends and deputations coming up. That is my first point. And secondly, concerning one-off grant, I am worried that we are referring to the median figure and the 3 hours. Now, there are 8 hours in a day, and 1/8 of 3 hours is still short. It still falls short. Now, for some conscientious organizations, according to your pay scale, if they hire teachers and staff of kindergarten, the given time, I think in 6 to 7 years, perhaps most of the colleagues would have exceeded the median figure. By then, would there be another one-off grant so that the school can continue operating? Mr. Young. There's so many hypotheses there. No, just one. If they do not have sufficient funding, what do you do? Well, he's hypothesizing that we're going to have one-off grant. I have not. Even if it's one-off grant, there would be a lot of details therein. I cannot answer the question like that. Well, even a very rich grant will have depletion one day.
Chairman, I really cannot answer such a hypothetical question. Next, Mr. Kenneth Chen. Chairman, I just have 2.5 minutes. It may not be enough. Just now, another member of the Civic Party has also asked some questions. Of course, we want the government to provide full support. The government is always like that. It set up a lot of committees, doing a lot of work, going in rounds and rounds, and also the pro-establishment camp would also would ask the government to come up with some information. It seems like we are begging them. And we seems to be begging Mrs. Moses Chang to come here. I think we should regret what he has done. I think we should reprimand him, reprimand Moses Chang, who refuses to come to the public hearing today. Now, he can choose. He chooses to see Helena Wong. He chooses to see Kenneth Chang. He chooses to see a certain principle. However, this is a public forum where we can exchange and debate. But he's absent, and so we have to mail the summary to him or send an email to him. We don't have to be so polite to him. Well, Under Secretary, you don't have to read out all the tags. We're talking about HD, WD, LWD, and you come up with a lot of new terms, half-day service, whole-day service, or what. It sounds so bad in Chinese, and it's a joke. It seems that you're illiterate. You're making up such strange words. It's hilarious. HD, WD, LWD, they are very clear, and you just con words. Chairman, for our subcommittee, I hope that at the next meeting, the government officials will not take us down the garden path anymore. Now the government pretends that it has no pre-established position. Okay, then we will put together a wish list for you. Well, you are spending $2 million on education voucher. Then let's make a calculation. If we want 1% of the GDP to be put in early education, then how are we going to spend that sum of money? We have to be more progressive. We should test the government. We should test its bottom line. The government cannot just tell us that it has no stance. I think we have the courage to move forward. We need to have the courage to move forward. The chairperson is back and she has heard you. Now, before we wrap up, I would like to remind you that just now the clerk has explained that is whether the Bureau has conveyed the message to the committee and who said he's not attending. I think we really need clarification in this regard. So for the chairman, vice chairman, and members of the committee, none of them is here. This is regretful because we are having a communication here. We'll wrap up the meeting now, and we will seek clarification. Or Under Secretary, can you clarify this question? Deputy Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. As for the chairman and chairman of the committee, we have talked to them. The chairman and vice chairman have met with legislators and different organizations for dozens of times in the past. So we suggested to the chairman and vice chairman, we said that we civil servants will come to attend this meeting, and when we hear stakeholders' views, we will tell them those views. Actually, in the next week, we will be having 2 meetings, one on Monday, one on Wednesday. We will be conveying representatives' views to them on those 2 occasions. Because our meetings are very frequent, so we think this arrangement is better. Let's adjourn here because we are overrunning. And if you want to further express your views, we can do it in the next session. I would like to thank all the individuals and deputations for coming.